Hi everyone, thank you for being here. I'm Katerina. I work at the Alumni Relations Office. I'm with Alexis and Karine and Emily, who isn't here today. I'm also a second year IHP master student at the Institute. And so before introducing the topic and the panelists, I just wanted to let you know that this is being recorded. We're going to post it on our YouTube channel. Also, there will be a Q&A session at the end. So for those online, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A section or in the chats directly. And for you, you can just wait until the end and we'll ask the questions. And also feel free to ask your questions in French or in English, as you prefer. So this is our second Inspire Students Roundtable this semester. And it's also part of the Alumni Month. So the Alumni Month happens every year in March, and we have a series of roundtables aiming to connect current students with alumni with a shared interest or passion or whatever. And so this roundtable is pretty special as it's also part of the Sustainability Week. So we've organized this roundtable with the Environmental Committee. So thank you, Ruling, for helping us organize the roundtable. And also thank you to Aline and the Career Services for helping us organize and moderating today's roundtable. So today we have the chance to have a great panel with us. So thank you all for being here. They all work in various sectors, but they all share an interest in sustainability. So again, thank you for being with us and for taking the time to share your experiences. So I'm just going to quickly introduce you. So we have first Solène Frisset, who currently serves as the president of the Festival du Film Vert, which takes place from March 14th to March 17th. So this week in Nyon, you have some flyers. I don't know where they are. Alex is going to give them to you if you're interested. And also the environmental committee is collaborating with them during this week, so the Sustainability Week, which is very interesting. And also, Solène also works as a nutritionist and a coach for the Holistic Health and Wellbeing Center, Reclaimed Women, that she founded in 2020. And in the past, she also worked for the World Energy Council, Africa Energy Indaba, and the World Economic Forum, among other things. So, merci Solène d'être avec nous, bienvenue. Then we have Beatrice Musello, who's online. She's a senior advisor with Adelphi, a think tank and consultancy in Berlin, where she's responsible for leading policy and risk analysis on the linkages between climate resilience, peace and security for governments, bilateral agencies, and development partners in several regions and countries with a focus on gender and inclusivity. She's also a mentor for younger staff, and she's involved in running an international network of climate and nature experts. And prior to that, she worked as a consultant on sustainability and climate action for private companies and investors, and as a researcher for the Overseas Development Institute in London, among other things again. So thank you for being with us today, Beatrice.
Thank you for having me.
We have Hugo Brandam, who has been working for the IOM since December 2022. So he started working there first as a consultant in migration, environment, climate change, and risk reduction. And since last September, he's working as a disaster risk reduction project officer. And prior to that, he has interned at UNOPS platform on disaster and displacement. And he did his applied research project with the joint unit of UN Environment Program and OCHA. And furthermore, he served as the environmental committee's president during his studies at the Institute, which is great, I think. So, welcome and thank you for being here. And lastly, we have Arnaud Ratzinger, who's the co-founder of Compostera, a startup that develops a range of compostable bio-based materials as a sustainable alternative to single-use plastics, such as cups, plates, and bowls. And his responsibilities lie primarily with the business development and communications. He also has experience as a research consultant with the ILO and as an investment consultant with Swisscom Ventures. So he knows both the public and the private sectors, which I think will be very interesting for us today. And yeah, welcome Arnaud, welcome everybody. Thank you for being with us. And I look forward to the discussion and I pass the floor to you, Aline. our career advisor. Thank you for being here too.
Well, welcome everyone, attendants and the participants, the speakers. Thank you for being here today. This is a very hot topic and close to my heart as well. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Alumni Department.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Just to introduce you how it's going to work, we'll first ask a general question to every single panelist, and then I'll ask a specific question to every one of them, and then they will have a discussion with each other. Okay? So I think I'll have to start with Hugo. Bonjour, Hugo.
Bonjour.
So the same question will apply. Okay. So what were your early interests? And when did you decide to pursue environment/climate-focused work?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I hope this discussion will be quite informal, so please feel free to raise your hand and interrupt. I guess that's the added value of this type of discussion, is really to have an interaction. So please feel free to interact with us. But it's so strange to be on the other side of the room. So it's hard to realize. But thanks again for the invitation. I think that type of event is much needed, mostly to raise awareness, but also to meet each other when we have time in exchange. And this is, I guess, one of the big added value of the graduate, but I may come back to that later. So my early interest to that topic is I come from a very rural place in France, in the southwest, and my grandfather was a shepherd. I had the chance to have a father who, let's say, raised awareness on the fact that there needs to protect ecosystem, firstly, wildlife, and then for the little story, I usually say my credits to my mother who brought me, to the cinema and to watch Ivy Parks. You know this movie, it's called The March of Penguins, La Marche de l'Empereur, from Luc Jacquet. And I was only 7 at that time, and for me it was really a game changer. And I remember I was like, okay, I want to be a vet, I want to save all the polar bears, but then, of course, we realized that vets don't have much power to move the political lines, so I switched a bit my interest. And then I guess my starting point was when I did an exchange year in South Africa, in Pretoria. I mostly focus on human rights studies, and then I realized the cascading effect of mineral extraction in the region. So when I came back, I did the first master in Sciences Po Lyon, when I did global security studies, but I really want to change my focus. And then the graduate, at this time, this sustainability, environment and resources master in development, that has changed a bit from what I understood. And I said, okay, let's try it, and I applied. And then I got this master, and I mainly focus on climate and environment courses. I would say perhaps 100% of the courses. Of course, the stats that are mandatory that I had to do also, but I would say, mostly was on these related topics. And the funny fact is, while today I'm working mostly on migration and displacement, I didn't do any course on migration at the graduate. And it's very surprising. Why? Because I mainly focus on sustainability, climate change adaptation, food system, conservation, wildlife. And then doing such studies, you will understand that everything is cross-cutting. And then thanks to internship, and I've done various of them, and I can come back to that later, I mainly get professionalized toward migration. So internship, job opportunity towards migration while having a background on climate and environment. And that allows me to have this cross-cutting expertise, if I can say, and then moving towards a professional opportunity in that nexus. So that was the opportunity, and that's a bit my background.
Thank you. Same question to you, Arnaud. What were your early interests, and when did you decide that this is the way you wanted to go?
This is when I'm going to become the climate guy. Well, also good afternoon to everyone. Very happy to be here. I think for me there was a journey on like multiple levels. So in my personal life, I've always really cared about the environment, like, going secondhand shopping, buying organic, that kind of stuff has always been important to me. But in my studies in my undergrad at Sciences Po Paris, I was working on like various topics. So I worked on gender, some sustainability stuff, some like innovation topics. But it was during my exchange here at the University of Maastricht, where I was at the School of Business and Economics, where I realized, wow, like I was in such a bubble. You know, there are like a lot of people out there who go to school and take like finance classes to then like work in investment banking with the mindset like my purpose is shareholder value maximization. So that was kind of my realization, okay, I could still, you know, think about should I buy almond or soy milk, which is the lower footprint, but that actually has so much less impact than my handprint, like what I'm actually doing professionally. And it was also something out of the privilege of, you know, attending all these elite universities that I realized, wow, like, you know, the society has invested so much in me and now I come out of it and I wonder what should I do with it. So I was like, okay, that really allows me to do so much more in terms of like driving change, doing something good for the planet. It's just like professionalizing in this discipline or in this topic. And so same as Hugo, I came to the Institute very much with the sustainability lens, but also during my time in Maastricht, I started my own company, which then I realized, well, that's really like a really impactful way of doing something about the environment and something that is usually not very much presented as something that you can do. And so, yeah, then during my studies here, it was very much linking these two things. So I had the company, but I also had the studies. Of course, I also wanted to use the studies to explore other lenses to sustainability. And yeah, I think that was kind of my guiding star. How can I make connections between these different spheres like entrepreneurialism, the UN, academic research?
I have a follow-up question. Is this the business school that you attended that triggered the interest to open your own company?
Was it what?
The fact that you...
Yeah, actually no. It was very ironic because I started the company with people who were not at the same school, so who were actually like material scientists and, you know, really like in the research. And then we you know, had this very hands-on experience of how do you start a company, how do you do like a sustainable business. And then like in one of the semesters I attended a class on like social business, you know, and then we actually had a class on how to do it while I was also doing it. Yeah, I think it was a little bit easier, I guess, in the environment to do it because it's not as, you know, far off than I would say here in the Graduate Institute to start your own company. Mm-hmm. So there was some support, but not like, I wouldn't say that they were like the tipping actor that got me to do it.
Thank you. Now the question is for Beatrice, same question. How did it start?
Yes, good question. Hi, everyone. Great to be with you, although, I mean, I can see myself multiple times in a very big stream in the room, which is a bit unsettling. But at least you will feel my presence very much. And I definitely feel yours seeing you in my screen. Let me apologize in advance for the really sad background, but I'm in a very dark hotel room in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan. I slept 3 hours last night, so if I don't make sense, it's not my fault, but it's the fault of the jet lag. Very useful excuse to have. So yes, how did it start? I think a bit like Hugo, but in a way, going in the opposite direction. I grew up in a family in the mountains in Italy. My mom was a biologist. My dad was an hydrologist. I got to having to choose what to study at 18 years old. Obviously, I decided to go for political science because you need to do exactly the opposite of what your parents would love you to do. And in truth, I've always been attracted by a career in development, international relations, which my bachelor studies in Italy, the Graduate Institute in Geneva were almost an obvious choice, especially because I live on the Italian side of the border with Switzerland. So it was like a 2-hour train ride, very, very easy for me to go home and to stay in Geneva. And interestingly, so this is also a bit of a lesson, history lesson for you. When I started at the Institute, which was quite a few years ago, I won't say how many, but to say the first year the Institute was still separated, there were still 2 institutes there was IUED. So one focusing on international relations, the other one more on development studies, and then they got merged when I was in my second year of master's. So few years ago. But yes, I studied the master's, I did the master's in international studies with a specialization in political science. And back then, topics related to climate and the environment and natural resource management were just starting to pop up in the various syllabi of theories of international relations, courses on multilateralism, diplomacy, peace building. There were still quite technical topics for climate scientists, hydrologists, natural scientists. They were starting to be considered in their political dimension, there was a realization that they were playing a role in driving conflict in some cases, but also representing entry points for cooperation. And for me, the deal breaker was actually a course that I took in the second year of my master program. Basically, I took that course because it was the only one that would that I needed some 6 credits still, and that was the only course that I still hadn't taken or that didn't have the same professor involved in the course and so on. So I took that one. It was focusing on theories and evidence of relations of water resources management between and within states and how they could become a source of conflict and of cooperation. Taught by a visiting professor back then, Professor Marwa Daudi, who is now at George Washington University, and I actually met her last week when I was in Washington for coffee, and it was incredible. And from that course, I basically fell in love with the topic of water resource management, the impacts of climate change, and questions of how can institutions, political institutions, adapt to this changing landscape. And I ended up deciding to write my PhD thesis on that topic under a EU-funded research program, which was a great opportunity not only to get, my research funded, which is always great, but also gave me a lot of opportunities to attend conferences, spend some months in Central Asia, which was one of the case studies of my PhD, and here I am back in Uzbekistan. But also a chance to work with a consortium of universities, organizations, focusing on these issues, and really help me expand my horizons and carve a space for myself in this field, which since then has grown exponentially. So I kind of started with the research and academia, and then I decided that that was the field I wanted to pursue, but I was very much interested in this kind of political element and using my research to inform policy action and programming in this field, which is why I moved on to more of a think tank based career, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk a bit more about it later.
Yes.
So I'll stop here for now.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you so much. Same question to you, Solène. How did it start?
Hi everyone. So I'm obviously the oldest alumni. I'm very happy to be here. I've never been in that place. I've known Karine for almost 25 years. She will confirm it to you. I'm hypersensitive and committed. That's an explosive combo. So this is where I come from. Ever since I was a kid, I was very sensitive to injustice. I couldn't stand it. I was very emotional. And at the same time, that need to act against something that was unjust has always been mixed with a deep attraction to vulnerability and the desire to help. So I was very young. We didn't have the climate back then. You know, my first thoughts were globalizations. I heard about climate at the Rio Summit. Rings a bell, anyone? 92? So that was not yet on the topic. So it was more the social issues, the South, exploitation by the North. It was more these things, you know. And so, yeah, it became pretty quickly obvious that I had to study international relations. So at the time it was at the Villa Bartholon, very nice place, highly recommended, by the lake. And then I started my work in IOs, NGOs, which I did for a few years. And I enjoyed it because it was, like I said, very committed. And I needed a cause. You know, so this is what comes with sensitivity. You need a cause. You need to feel helpful. You need to feel valuable. You need to make a difference. So it supported me for quite some time. And then life throws you surprises and reflection, and you age, and it's a good thing. And I shifted. So, but I guess we're going to come back to the question afterwards. So I'm going to keep it very, very short. But climate came much later on. Sustainability came much later on. But it all comes back, yeah, to that sensitivity, that desire for justice, and that attractiveness to vulnerability and humans.
Thank you, Solène. Thank you very much. Now it's the time for the specific question to each panelist. So Hugo, again, you're first on my list, on their list. Okay, so during your studies, you interned in multiple places. So UN agencies, governmental departments, an NGO. And so the question I would have for you is, if you can give an advice about what would make a good and worthwhile internship.
Thank you. I guess, yeah, my profile could sound a bit UN-oriented now, but I have to say I had previous experiences in local NGO first, then national and international one, and that was also, for me, the game changer. So I will come back to that later, but I would not recommend as one of your first and big internship to start or to look for something in the UN. I mean, that's my personal advice. And I felt that at the beginning of my professional career, I wanted something more rewarding, more impactful, that I could see the impact on the short term. And if you work for the UN, clearly it's not the place to. So it's much more on the longer term, and sometimes you don't even see your impact. But I recommend to find a good and worthwhile internship is to, for me, in my views, there are two ways of looking into a good and worthwhile internship. The first is to look by institution organization. What are you looking for? Are you looking for an NGO? It could be at the local in Geneva, it could be at your place, it's a national one or international one. Are you more looking into academy, university, think tank, doing research? Are you more into, you want to work for your government because you feel that you belong to somewhere and there is things to push for? Or are you more looking for UN agencies? And then this will also orient yourself. But depending also how you feel and what you need, if you want to see clear and short-term impact, I would rather recommend to work for an NGO. And that for yourself, I'm just speaking, feeling good in what we do. Then also, it's true that the UN can be very competitive. It's very lengthy to get into the process. And in my view, again, one of the first experiences should be in a smaller team with a higher supervision, so you can do much more. Your tasks are much wider. You can do, in Asia, I've done advocacy, policy, of course, then research. You can really do plenty of stuff. And that's a way to learn, because we are here to learn, and the Graduate Institute is here to teach you how to learn, right? Because we will be flexible. We have to be flexible for our generation. So my advice is, how do you see yourself? In which institution? So that's the first thing. Would you rather target institution? The second is by thematical. I want to work on climate, on sustainability, but what exactly? Are you looking for energy? Are you talking about food system, for migration? So that's the second way. If you really have something that you really are passionate about, is it wildlife, anything, you say, okay, I would rather go that way, and whatever, I can work for research, I can work for a government, I can work for NGOs, and then you don't really care about the institution, but you just want to get the knowledge, the expertise. And then after, when you get more experiences, you would be able to choose, okay, now I feel more comfortable working for something more flexible, or something in academia, let's see. So that's for me the two ways to look at it. And if I come back to institutions, sometimes it happens that for any reason, visa reason, we have different means, different backgrounds, so the story is different for everyone. But if you have some visa issues, you say, okay, I should rather go for international organization, but I won't work, I don't know, on intellectual property, but then it's only WIPO. And then, so you say, okay, perhaps I could accept to work for an institution, but not in the specific field that I wanted to. So that's for me the choice that really is Cornélien, in the sense that for me it's super important to decide what you want to do. And then I insist, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. It's super important when you apply for a job, even if you have chosen to go for NGO, for whatever, please stay open. Don't be too picky, because in this competitive environment, you never know. Behind an application, there will be probably, and I've suffered from it so much, like internal candidates actually, that are already taken the place. But then financial cut, so the job is not longer available. So what I've done is, okay, let's apply, have a proper application, not a generic one, and Aline will be very cautious on that, is really target your application to each job position. So I did it, and if you have to take 3 additional hours, take them. Even if it's the weekend, take them. And then once you apply, you will get many more reply, and then you say, okay, you continue in the process until you are the last candidate. And if you don't like it, okay, you change. But what I want to say is, please do not say, okay, I really like this job, it really does fit me, I will keep to that one. No, it doesn't really work like that. You have to apply, I would say, I don't know the percentage of it, but for 50 applications, you will receive what? 5 interviews, something like that, and I'm pretty, yeah, I think that's something around that way. So that's what I really wanted to emphasize on.
If you ever make a shift in your career, would you consider career advisor? It's really good.
Yeah, I had a good teacher, and it's from this house. So.
Here we go. Arnaud, so you're a recent graduate. So good to have you here for that reason too. You co-founded your own company, as we know now. What are the knowledge or skills or experience that you gained from your time here at the Institute, maybe in Maastricht as well, that helped you open your company and that is also helping you with the job search?
Before we get to that, I just want to follow up on what Hugo said, because that was also like these lessons or these points that he just made, that is kind of like the output of the past 6 months of looking for a job. So yeah, it is really like, I don't want to sound alarmist, and it can be really scary, and I don't, there is already enough anxiety in this space anyway, but it is, I think, also healthy to, just be aware of that, and also then take that, with all that in mind, that's the way to approach the process, I would say. So be aware there's so much competition, that it means there's also so many other reasons why somebody else got the job and not you, which can also be a source of comfort, right? Like there's so many other factors besides yourself that impact that. Coming back to your question, I think what really was extremely helpful for both my business and my studies here was making use of synergies. So for example, I decided to do my master thesis on circular economy innovation systems. So looking at how different actors, entrepreneurials, established companies, researchers, policymakers, civil society work together towards the transformation to the circular economy. And I did a comparison between Switzerland and the Netherlands, of course. And that was extremely helpful because, first of all, it allowed me to make use of the network that I had built in the Netherlands through the company, but also helped me then to build a network in Switzerland where I wanted to stay after my graduation. And also I learned a lot about, what other companies are doing. So getting a better sense of the competitors, getting a sense of the priorities that other stakeholders have. And the Institute with my supervisor really provided the great support, and there was great enthusiasm around the topic. So I found that was really nice. And on the other end, I also found that many of the classes that I took at the Institute, while not being, specifically on entrepreneurship, because I think it's very hard to teach that, but it's rather to get a better or a wider sense of the issue, which then really helps you set yourself apart as an entrepreneur. Because I think most entrepreneurs, they are very much laser focused on their product and their innovation, but it prevents you sometimes to actually see the ecosystem that you're in. And then, you know, I took classes here on the history of climate change, on the anthropology of climate change. Usually that's not, you know, the things that come up if you go to a networking session for climate innovators. But it is really helpful for you to feel a bigger purpose than just your own business, because that's also something that is very dangerous if you're an entrepreneur, is that, you know, you tie your own self-worth and your own success only to the company. But again, there's so many other factors that impact the success of your company. So you should always see like a bigger picture, a bigger purpose that you're navigating.
Thank you. Beatrice, question for you now. What are the advantages and limitations in working at a think tank? And also, were there any advantages in having a PhD?
Good question. Okay, let's start with the advantages of working in a think tank. I think the first thing I would say goes a bit along the lines of what Hugo was saying, actually, but on the opposite side. So if you don't have your ideas very clear about the specific topic you want to work on, think tank is actually great because, of course, you do have an area of specialization. So, for example, Adelphi is a think tank that focuses on climate change, environmental and development topics, and within that, my program specifically looks at the linkages between climate change impacts and security and peace, but that is the kind of broad areas, and then you do get to work on many different projects at the same time with a very different focus, different activities, different objectives, different partners, different clients that you work for. And this, I think, is a kind of a field rule throughout my career, kind of having a core area of expertise that focus around climate change impacts, water resource management, international security, so always a bit with this kind of political science, international relations framework in mind, but then having the flexibility and the capacity as well to kind of broaden and work on many different projects, different areas, as the opportunity arises. So I worked on, water resource management, water and sanitation in conflict-affected and crisis context, working in like on trainings on climate and security for government, multilateral donors, and so on. So huge range of activities, huge range of projects, huge range of context as well. So as I mentioned, like I started my career looking at Central Asia, but then when I was in London at the Overseas Development Institute, a lot of my work there was on Africa. So I traveled a lot to Ethiopia, Mozambique, South Sudan, DRC, for example. And now in my in my career, the private sector with companies, a lot of focus on Latin America, and now back to Central Asia and again a bit of Latin America. So also in terms of geographical spread, you get to vary that a lot, which is obviously great. You also get to work with a lot of different partners, so that some projects you will be very much on the ground, working with local civil society organizations. Other projects, other engagements are, in New York with the UN agencies at their headquarters, within the Security Council, with regional organizations, universities. So again, depending a lot on the project, you have also this variety of people and organizations to work with, which is great because in a way, sometimes you feel part of the UN system, but then you don't have to deal with all the admin stuff of the UN system. And sometimes you jump to the next project and all of a sudden you're part of a local level civil society organization, like really implementing projects on the ground. At the same time, of course, there are some downsides to all these. The fact that you work on projects means that you get to work on 3-6 month long projects, so it's quite fast paced. You manage multiple projects at the same time. sometimes very stressful. You travel a lot in many cases, which is great when you're very young and responsibility free. It's a bit more difficult when you have a family, a lot to juggle and a lot of also personal considerations that you need to do. And I mean, all of us have to do it, and it's a very important aspect to consider also when looking for jobs and choosing the career you want to have. And for somebody like me that comes from, PhD and doing kind of academic research, you have the feeling sometimes that you don't really have the time to think or to do things properly, in terms of methodology to apply to do your research. Sometimes you have 2 weeks to come up with a policy paper. So obviously the kind of rigorous scientific analysis is a bit lacking. And also, maybe going back to the point about funding, the think tank world, some more than others, but you're always hunting for funds. In many cases, especially when you go up to senior management positions, you are responsible. You have financial targets attached to your own position. So you need to bring money into the organization. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of networking, which obviously takes out time from the actual research and implementation of the project. Finally, maybe a quick thing on the PhD question. I think in a think tank, having a PhD is not essential. What is essential is being a smart, fast-thinking person that is adaptable, curious, and interested in the topics. But also, at least my experience is that the PhD helps with recognition and with, you already have a kind of a track of publications, for example, and so it helps with career progression. So you can enter a think tank without a PhD, but then once you're in, you go faster in terms of career progression if you have one.
Okay, thank you so much, Beatrice, because this is often a question that we have from the students, whether they should do a PhD or not. So that helps a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you. Solène.
Refresh my memory.
No, of course.
Because I was so deep into listening to
Of course, no, I will ask the question, don't worry. So you have worked with large IOs, like the WEF, the World Energy Council, and you're now the president of the Green Film Festival in Lyon, and you're also a certified nutritionist. So our question to you...
How does it goes together?
Yeah. Can you tell us about this shift? And also, when you're so environmentally engaged person and professional, how can you create change?
Yeah, right, okay. So,
take your time.
Thank you. So, well, let me start by saying how lucky you are to be here, because these studies, they didn't give me a specific skills, that would help me in the job market. Obviously, I'm a generalist, but they taught me how to think. And I've been using up to date this interdisciplinary, this capacity, to see a problem for all the different angles. And this is incredibly useful, incredibly precious. I started my career, like she mentioned it, in IOs and NGOs. I've done a lot of project management, I've done a lot of protocols, so I was a lot in charge of institution relations, government relations, dealing with heads of states, ministers, engaging countries in projects, social related, climate related. The shift you talk about, it has different factors. I purposely didn't come prepared at all, because if I come prepared, it's a mess. So hi, welcome. So the shift, well, it has first external factors, because that's how it is with life. So you meet the love of your life in an NGO. Maternity comes, so there's a massive change of priorities. And you also have, so change of priorities, change of, time allocation, and you also have a lot of internal factors. So I'd say the reflection is critical, and we need to think and think deeply. We are at a climate tipping point, and you are the lucky ones, because you have both the opportunity and the responsibility to use your future decision, job-wise, as a leverage. And this is, quite something, and we are here to talk about it. And let me just come back on what you said about, the choice of internship, and you said choose small, choose interaction, value the link, and you said step back, keep the big picture. So all of this comes back to step a bit away from a reductionist vision. Everything in interaction, everything into connection, and you will gain so much more, with that link and interconnection that you will have with other people in internships, in creating your business. I totally relate to that. So yeah, these internal factors, they do matter. And that reflection combined with obviously, life limits, I slowly, always, the compass is always the same, helping people, having something valuable. That should be your compass when you choose a job. Choose a job that makes sense. Have a moral compass. I know it's you may have, shiny offers from big companies, but have a moral compass. I think it's very important, and keep it. And then, so that's the first step. Choose the job that makes sense. And then my reflection, so these internal factors, really, they brought me to an additional layer, which is personal engagement. That's how I shifted. So, like you mentioned, I work a lot with women mainly, and perinatal care, because I do believe that respect towards nature, towards climate, start with respect towards women, towards birth and newborns. So that's my strong belief. So I am an advocate for an ecology of birth. I am an advocate for coming back to human interactions. So a job that makes sense, moral compass, personal engagement. And step by step, I shifted even more. And I realized that what brings me the most joy, and by far for me has the deepest impact, is to be locally grounded and serve a community. So that's what I mean by engage personally. And that is on top of your job. Of course, it's compatible. I work and I have 3 children. One of them is here, half asleep. So, yeah, engage yourself. It will bring you joy. And it will release any anxiety that you may have, in regards to the social issues, the climate issue. Because like you said, and you were so right in saying that, the more you think, the more you step back, the more you see the big picture, the more it frees you. That's the beauty of it. And then, once you start really thinking, talking about the problem, about what's triggering anxiety, step by step, the solution, they will come to you. You don't have to seek the solution. Stop being solutionist. Stop being into performance. You will burn out yourself and the planet. Let the solution come to you, and be with the people. And one of the solutions is really to be grounded within your community. You all have a mean to be grounded. You all have a mean to act. You all have ways. It will come to you. And so, yeah. So that's my message to you. Have a moral compass. Try and find a job that makes sense. Engage yourself as citizens and persons, and you will find joy. You will find how impactful you are. And yeah, I would not exchange what I live now for, the big titles that I used to have, and my computer, and the lots of traveling that I used to have. But do your way. You have so much time. You have so much time. And I think, you almost asked me the question about the link with art and culture. Let me come back to it. Because, like you said, you have to think over and over and over again. Einstein said, if I have an hour on a problem, I will think about the problem for 55 minutes and maybe try and solve it for 5 minutes. So yes, I think we are so focused on finding the solution, being ultra efficient. Efficiency. We should think about the problems, the big picture. And we should have, and that's where art comes into the thing, I think, is like we should have a more artistic way of doing things. Because an artist is not like an economist or a politician. An artist doesn't aim at efficiency, solutions, or performance. It aims at raising more questions. And I think that's what we should do. We should raise questions again and again and again. And so I keep doing that all the time. She knows. And when I have thought about the problem for so long, I come up with, I'm going to be politically engaged in my commune, and I'm going to do the Green Film Festival. And I'm going to spend my time teaching, explaining, showing, sharing, helping people find that internal transition that help them move from anxiety, uncertainty, help me, to serenity, peacefulness, and joy in action. Like Spinoza said, an action that comes from joy is always more efficient. So yeah, that's the shift, pretty much. I think so. So it doesn't look like it's all connected, but for me it is. I see the same investment towards people, how you respect people, how you treat people, as how you invest nature and treat nature. So, yeah. Thank you guys for your input. Your input is good. Yeah.
I just would like to bounce on what you said about being engaged locally, that you feel more fulfilled and having an impact. But I also would like to share with our students that it's also something that will help you get a job at an IO if you are considering this, because this is...
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IO or NGO, by the way, or even think tank, because it will show that you have the right mindset for that. Like you dedicate your time for a good cause. So that will look good on your CV no matter what. That's my point.
Yeah. And you're right. And I use it because I do have to get some funds, We are all volunteers. So it comes very handy to have been looking for funds on a very big level for so many years. It comes very handy to be able to think about a subject from many angles when you have to set up a session, choose the panelists for the roundtable that will follow the movie. All of these skills are incredibly valuable. And I'm not only talking about, even politically, when you have to draft something, because you want to present a political object for the votation, you have to think like this. So like I said, the studies are amazingly useful. The years you will be working will be amazingly useful and valuable to you. Then it comes to you what you want to do with those skills. And I think, the stepping back and the reflection, the constant reflection, and the being into the interaction, not into a reductionist way of seeing things, and keeping that moral compass at all times. It's on you. You have a great opportunity.
And relocating the discussion to the graduate, I guess you have the chance, and I took it at Arno as well. You have so many different initiatives. Some of them are dying, that you probably don't know them. but plenty of them still exist. You have the biggest one, but of course you have plenty of other. And you want to create one, you can create one. I'm saying that because for me it was not only a question of doing stuff, but it's learning from each other. It's the graduates, you are from such a diverse background. I was so impressed. For me, sustainability means something completely different from another colleague, friends coming from the other side of the planet. And then I was so impressed, and I learned so much from each of the any friends of the environmental committee. So for me, it's really a big asset that you have to take into consideration. It's you and I didn't realize it at this time, and that was something that Aline keep saying to me. But please put in your CV that you have been involved in it. I say, but why? And then I understood. Yes, okay, yeah, I see now. I clearly see. But it's true, when you do it, you don't do it for your CV, right? And sometimes I feel a bit ashamed. People would think that I'm doing this just to put it on my CV, which is not the case. But since you are learning so much and you are meeting so many people, for me, it's true that you have to put it in a CV, but because it would be so easy to explain, because that's your life, that's what you like. It's not a job, it's not a work, it's like you. So that's for me, and you can do whatever in this type of initiative. So please take into consideration to get involved. Of course, you have to balance your workload with your studies and what you have outside of the uni and probably your work, but that's something to really keep in mind. And that's that's where I met Arnaud, I met so many other friends, and it's, you will see how enriching it could be for you, but also all the people around you, and it will be like planting seed inside you that will grow, but 1-2 years afterward, and that's crazy.
And it will prove your motivation for the recruiter. So be aware of that. There's no better proof of your motivation if you're engaged locally or with an initiative or do volunteering.
Also, sorry, can I?
Sorry, Beatrice, go ahead. Yeah.
Can I quickly just make a point building on this? I think the point about make the most of your experience at the Graduate Institute is so important, not just in terms of the opportunities that you have there for engagement and the learning, which are great and super valuable, but also, as Hugo was saying, to learn from your peers and also build a network. I don't want to say, because it sounds like very kind of nepotism type of thing, but I got quite a lot of projects with former friends and colleagues from the Institute because they're now with UN agencies, which are clients, of course, and so we work together. They're giving us funding for projects. And the network and the people that you will meet at the Institute are incredible sources of knowledge, expertise, inspiration, but also professional opportunities going forward. So make the most out of it.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. As I was saying, I'm cautious of the time. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to open the discussion among you guys. But it's the perfect time for a question. Anyone? For our panelists?
Hi. I may have missed it, but in terms of like furthering your research, so people looking to do like a PhD, and how are you able to balance like work-life and also furthering your education?
Was that for me?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like looking for synergies. So that's like a big thing. Of course, you don't always want to take like the easy path, but it can help in some instances. So, for example, with my master thesis, I chose a topic that was really like aligned with the business, and so I could, it opened a lot of doors, made a lot of things easier for me. And I think the other is also that I guess kind of depends on your personal preferences and style, but I also found it really refreshing to like shift gears and you write this really academic paper on like the topology of climate change and then after an hour of doing that you could do something much more like concrete, like I don't know, thinking, writing a grant application for the new subsidy that you need to buy a new machine or something like that, which is much more like specific. And I think that is also something that now helps me with the job search, is kind of like thinking about what do I want to do, and then also how does that kind of help me overall, because like you never want to just have a job for the sake of the job, but also see how, you know, how can it advance me really. And I think that also comes back to your point early on about like being a generalist, which I also really see now in looking for jobs, how incredible that is, because you have so many more opportunities that you are relevant for. Like if I think about, you know, I've applied for sustainability jobs with like Novartis, with like, you know, Big Four Consulting, but also with very industry focused, like architecture, like sustainability companies. And I've always had some project, research paper, course that I did at an institute related to that. And that's really amazing. It's still hard because usually for like junior positions, they're like, yeah, we wanna, like, you were really good, but we have somebody else who studied pharmaceutical studies and then did sustainability, so now we're gonna take them. But I think in the long term, it's gonna pay off because you stay so much more agile. You can change so much more comfortably. Yeah.
It's true. It's what makes us adaptable.
Yeah.
And adaptability is, our survival in a world which is less and less and less stable. From a climate point of view, on a social point of view, we have to rely on that, on adaptability. And when you have so many different tools, because of that brilliant education, it makes you very adaptable. And that's actually amazing. Yeah, and I felt it too.
Yeah.
I have a question for Beatrice. I was wondering, you said your PhD helped you towards professional progression, but within the consultancy. I was wondering, did it, framed your professional research and your jobs also within the academic, the research world, or was it a bit complicated to get out of get a bit more hands-on, to get a bit more into the field, into the practice? I don't know. Or was it also a choice of yours? Or I was just wondering if the PhD framed it for you, or how did it go about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it comes back to the point about adaptability a lot, right? So the reason why I went to the research, to the think tank world, was also because I did my PhD at the institute, and for the last year of my PhD, I got a scholarship from the Swiss National Science Foundation that allowed me to study at the London School of Economics. And then the scholarship was kind of over, but my PhD was not ready yet, let's put it that way. And so I had to find a job, and I found a job in a think tank, and that kind of opened my my eyes to the world of think tanks and kind of policy applied research. I was lucky, I think, because the think tank where I started my kind of think tank career was very much research oriented. So yes, you would not do like a long, like 4-year research project, but you would still do like your 1-year project with fieldwork, data collection, kind of qualitative methodologies, a bit less quantitative, but that's also because I'm more of a qualitative person, so kind of fit into my expertise. In other think tanks, for example, where I am now, it's a bit less kind of research focused. We kind of work with local researchers to do the research, and we're more the ones that kind of interpret the research, translate the research for policymakers. So there, of course, it's a bit like more separated to what my background was in terms of academic research. I think it may have been more difficult to go straight into that world from research, from academia, going straight into like a policy-oriented world. I think I had this transition, which very much helped me. And I think what really helped me was an experience of 2 years in a private sector consultancy firm where you really had to kind of get rid of all the academic stuff. I mean, the papers we wrote couldn't even have sources in them. Imagine, like I couldn't cite anything, which is like text, because the client were not interested in the sources. They just wanted the facts. So I had a couple of things that helped me kind of do the transition. But again, adaptability was key. Yeah, and then at the end of the day, it depends on you. If you are in a private sector consultancy where you can't even have citations in your policy paper, and this is something that is absolutely not for you, then maybe you can reorient a bit your career towards a research institution that does a bit more of the academic research, and there's plenty of them out there as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Pleasure.
Do we have time for one more question? Yeah. Anyone? Yes.
First of all, thank you so much to all the panelists for being here. I find it really valuable, all the things that you guys have shared. I think support to the alumni office for organizing and doing such a good job, and of course. I wondered if, just a question to, general question, if those of you who want can give us maybe a snapshot of what your daily work life looks like. I think sometimes that can be a sort of a mystery. Are you doing a lot of meetings, discussions? Are you writing, researching? Maybe you can share something that's really enjoyable about your day or something that is more challenging.
Who would like to start?
I could start. So my days are really interesting at the moment. So I do a lot of different things, and I think that goes back to this point of like, enjoying doing different things. Because, for example, with the job search, it's really hard if you do that 9 to 5, and that's the only thing that you're doing at the end of the week, because there's so many outside factors impacting it, and it's really hard to see impact. So I usually do like a mix. I do like applications, interview prep, actual interviews, meeting people that could help me prepare for the interviews or the applications. Then for my company, I do mostly like grant applications. So for example, it's a bit similar, because in the end it is also like sort of application that you write, and then an interview and follow up and all of that, but in a different context. So I enjoy that. And then, but also some creative work about like, how do we want to develop the product? What kind of collaborations could we be doing? And then I think the third thing is like volunteer in other engagements that I'm doing, which I also find really, really important for me right now, because, for example, with the job search, it's really, after like, months of doing that, you kind of feel like, wow, I'm like, is this now my new profession? But having these volunteer opportunities to actually keep doing the things that you want to be doing keeps you much fresher also in the interviews, and gives you good examples when they ask you, when did she do that, when did she do that, which is also really nice.
Anyone?
You don't want to know about my days.
I think it would be interesting.
Perhaps briefly. To say again, so I work for the International Organization for Migration and in the climate change division, let's say. So I would say that the agenda of the year is based on the climate negotiations first. So we start to not see the light from September to December. So that's the very hectic period. But just coming back into the discipline is so for me, and I feel so lucky to be working on that, because for me, climate change and migration are perhaps the more interesting, but the more complex issues. You cannot be more politically sensitive, let's say. Imagine combination of climate change and migration. I mean, that's what else would you like to do? But it's so interesting because the field is growing and growing. Budget are increasing so much in the UN, in NGOs. Everyone now wants to talk about what we call climate mobility. So human mobility includes migration, displacement, what we call forced migration, and different type of movement. And in the context of climate change, because of disaster and the other type of impact. So we really try now. I'm based in HQ, so most of my work is to do policy support to member states. So we advise certain states on implementing specific program at regional level, national level, to really reduce, minimize, and address the different risks for displacement and the various movement of people, and to make them, secure and put them out of harm's way. So that's the main goal. But it could go from research to coordination with other organizations on the same project, to bilateral discussion with ambassadors, different diplomats. It's very broad and very wide, and that's what I really like. But for me, the really big asset is every single day I'm learning something new. And that's why I feel very, very grateful for that. Is I still feel at university in a way, without papers to do, and that's great. But yes, science is learning. I mean, on human mobility and climate change, we don't know everything yet. We know now it's likely and we understand the movement, but probably we will never be able to predict movement of people depending on climate change. But we are getting to it and we have better modeling, we have better understanding. But every single day, if I'm talking about specific needs of specific type of, let's say, it could be regional, it could be women, children, youth. And this is so interesting because it's so diverse and we are learning so much. So that's for me really the best part of the job. But I'm pretty happy. I got a new job recently. So I'm being deployed to Burundi as a humanitarian. So yeah, I'm flying this Saturday actually. So I'm packing a bit everywhere. So I wasn't sure to be able to do so. But so my day today will change probably to have more implementation in missions on different projects directly there. So that's the thing.
I'll leave the floor to you. You have a question?
We had a question online from Suprit, who asked, how do you all try to be optimistic with all the impact that you see in the world with respect to climate action and sustainability? And Beatrice answered, look at all the positive stories out there. There are so many motivated people really doing some inspiring work in the most difficult circumstances. Looking at that will reassure you that everything is possible. So I don't know if you want to add something to this.
I can add something. So I've done pretty much what you do. It makes me smile. I recently had that conversation with my husband and my children, and they were all like, you need to stop. Seriously. They were like, that answers a bit of your question about my days, because, you can't deal with the house, the job, your political duties, the festivals, you need to stop. And I was like, no, I cannot stop. Because it's too, let me say it like that, it's too psychologically and emotionally important. So that is how I would answer that question. And how do you keep positive? Because obviously we live in a very, like you said, anxious environment. No question about that. The question is, you have two choices. Choice one, you are helplessly being subjected to that anxiety. Choice two, you try to do something, even if it's very little, have your meaningful job, have a little person engagement on the side, and that will completely relieve you from that anxiety. So that's as simple as that. I took the decision not to be constantly negatively impacted and not to, comment tu dis, subir?
Suffer?
Suffer, yeah. Not suffer from it. Rise above it. And again, we are at that climate tipping point, and I think your generation might be the generation that will reconnect to nature and that will slowly get back into being more grounded. Good. So I am a bit more optimistic.
I think for me there's like two main things. On the first thing with like our generation changing something, I think that's something really like it's really tempting to not do that, and it's really tempting to present yourself in a way that very much mimics the institutions and the senior people in the organization, because it is kind of right, this psychological thing of like, yeah, if I want to like rise up in the organization, I have to like become like the organization, I have to become like the people in power. But I think that's not the way forward, both in terms of like it won't help you actually progress as much, and it also will not make you feel accomplished, because then you, like in 20 years you're gonna wake up and you'll be like, now I'm in this position of power, but I feel like so purposeless, right? So I think one of the best things to stay optimistic is to be bold and to be brave. And I think, for example, I had a personal situation when I worked at the ILO, where, you know, there were these really exploitative work practices in the UN system for junior people that I think most of us are familiar with, like unpaid, underpaid internships, underpaid consultancies and stuff. And to just like be brave enough and to stand up for yourself, or stand up for, you know, a colleague or another intern who is unfairly treated, or also, you know, stand up when there is actually greenwashing happening in the organization and they're trying to make you continue it. I think that's the number one thing, and I think goes back to like the moral compass. And I think the other thing is also, that's a bit cynical, but it is like this openness to learning, if you want to frame it positively. I think we are going to experience so many environmental crises in our lifetime, and there is also it's like, you know, like the pandemic in a way. Of course, it's extremely tragic. There's going to be people dying, but there's also going to be a lot of change in our society, and we can witness that. I mean, I think I often tell this anecdote of a class that I took here at the Institute, and it was just after the war in Ukraine started, and before every class we had like a 5-minute talk about, you know, how things are evolving, how the political system is responding to it. And then after one of these brief introductions, our professor said, I don't want to really say it, but in a way, I kind of envy your generation. I mean, we're just coming out of a global pandemic. We have the climate crisis looming in front of us, and we have a war in Europe. There's so many research questions that you can ask yourself. And of course, that's like extremely privileged and, you know, cynical way of seeing it. But that is also one way of staying optimistic. There's going to be so much change that we can shape. So.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we're done for today because it's already 1:45. I've seen there's one more question, but feel free just to stay online. I think, Beatrice, you can stay a little bit more, right? Like 15 minutes more, or not? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I
5 minutes.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe if you can stay online and feel free to ask your questions to Beatrice if you want to ask some more. And otherwise, thank you so much. It was great. It was not only interesting, but also very helpful as a student. So thank you very much. I think we can continue our discussion right outside with some snacks and juices. But just before that, I just wanted to tell you about our next roundtable, which will take place next week. It will focus on professions in the field of diplomacy. So it's next Tuesday at the same time as today in room S5. And also we've talked a little bit about networking. So I just wanted to let you know too that we're gonna have a French lesson. We're gonna teach some French to the students who are interested on the theme how to network, basically in French. Donc le réseautage. So it will take place on April 9 in S8. So feel free to just talk to me, ask me questions if you're interested, or you can check our social media or the website and you have some more information. So yeah, thank you very much. I think we can give them a big round of applause. We can go outside and have something to drink. Or stay here if you want to touch that thing.
Non, mais parce que c'est au fond de mon truc que je suis en train, je ne vais pas les jeter. Donc ils ne sont pas sustainable, mais
Thank you so much. Enjoy the snack. Very jealous.
on les a pas. J'ai pas la Béatrice, elle a dit quelque chose, Béatrice, j'ai pas entendu.
Ah, sorry.
What did you say?
Beatrice?
Thank you so much and enjoy the snacks and the network.
Thanks
I'm very
to you
jealous.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Maybe some of the other panelists may have been a bit more suitable for these in terms of innovative strategies. I'm more on the kind of research side. So again, I can talk about how research can help ensure a sustainable and equitable future. And to me, It's all about maybe how you conduct research, and also in this sense, like having been in the think tank world for like 15 years now, I've also seen a big change there and focus on like really ensuring that both the questions that we ask and the way we go about answering them take into account the voices and needs of as many people as possible. So, as I mentioned in my company at the moment, the approach is no longer that of like me going for field work for 2 weeks somewhere and coming back with data and writing a report, but really working with some local researchers on the ground that are better able to understand and grasp the reality and answer the questions that we're asking. And I think this is key, because I would like to think that strategies towards a sustainable and equitable future need to be informed by research and evidence on what needs to be in those strategies to strive towards a more sustainable and equitable future. And that means that the research in itself needs to be conducted in such a way that the perspectives of the people that need to be an active part of building that future are listened to and reflected. So again, it's our very direct answer, and it very much talks about the way in which we do research. But I think that as researchers, we have a big responsibility to play in that sense as well, and thinking about the research practices and how we go about answering the questions for policymakers, decision makers, and to inform the action on the ground.
Right. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. Does anybody else have any other questions online?
Okay, I think there is one.
Yeah.
Feel free to just unmute yourself, and if it's easier for you, go for it. There's no worry.
I'm curious about how working. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to my voice. Sorry.
No worries.
Working in think tank, how do you see like the relationship between like doing the research, the applied research, and seeing like the different stakeholders involved, and then how much does the research actually is taken into consideration once you like deliver the recommendations, like I don't know, because I think it's a little bit closer than going on academia, like to see it actualized, but I don't know how does it really work, and if it's like you feel it's out of your hands, or like really the clients come because they really want to take it into consideration, or how does like that work? Thank you.
Yeah. It's a very good question, and it very much depends on the projects and the clients. I think it is a bit quicker than the academic type of research that you have to publish in a peer-reviewed journal, and then you don't really know in many cases who is going to read the journal and how it's going to be used to inform their work. Although I think most research projects nowadays do have very specific requirements in terms of policy impact, and being able to to get research funds, you need to demonstrate the policy impact that research will have, and now you plan for that to happen. So there's definitely been a focus on that also in the more kind of academic world. In the think tank world, I think there are two aspects to consider. One is the client that you have. Some clients will be able to implement policies and programming in a quicker way, a more direct way. So if you're working with an NGO that is commissioning your piece to inform their work in a specific context, you know that that piece of work will really be used by the NGO to inform their work in a very specific context, because they spend the money for having that information. So obviously, or not obviously, but ideally they will act on that information quickly and promptly. In some other processes, with some other clients, so maybe with more kind of government-oriented clients, obviously the impact in terms of research being taken up in policies and strategies will be much longer, because it takes longer to enact and pass a policy, for example. So you can see the kind of impact of your work a bit more delayed. But for example, one area where we've done done a lot of work on, even before I joined my current company, Adelphi. They've always been very active for 10 years now on, making the case that the impacts of climate change are exacerbating some of the factors that drive conflict and insecurity in many contexts in the world. And it has taken 10 years to produce research and make the case in point for these linkages between climate, peace and security to be concretely and actively addressed, for example, in the Security Council. And we still don't have a resolution in the Security Council. That's a whole other kind of diplomatic process. But at least now they have been discussed in the Security Council. But it's taken like really 10, 15 years of really solid research being put out there. And still people come in saying, oh, we don't have any kind of concrete proof of a direct connection. Yeah, but it's because there's no direct connection. But it's like, it's a work in progress, and sometimes it takes ages. But eventually you need never to lose faith that this will happen. And also, I think, last point, very important to think about how you communicate your research, especially in an era of social media where there's a lot of noise out there, and for policymakers it's very difficult to understand what the key message is and to shift through the amount of research publications, reports and policy briefs and whatever workshops and conferences that is being put out there. So really putting like a serious thought into like how you communicate your key messages, your research, and in a way that will be understood in the language that the specific client or policymaker understands, that is critical and will determine how much of your research is actually read and understood and acted upon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Patrice. It was amazing. Thank you so much. It was very interesting, very helpful, as I said before. We'll post the video on our YouTube channel, so it's going to be even more people, having the chance to listen to this. So again, thank you so much.
Thanks to you for inviting me. It's been a really interesting conversation. I really much enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day. And,
thanks, you too.
And see you.
Yes, hopefully. See you soon. Thanks.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. Bye.